Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has revealed his party's fall agenda, and it includes fighting to abolish the temporary foreign worker program.
Conservative MP and former True North journalist Andrew Lawton has defended Juno News co-founder Keean Bexte for his election reporting, saying, quote, "Journalism is not a crime."
A Durham Region police union called out Liberal Justice Minister Fraser, saying crime stats tell a different story than his flippant remarks on self-defense. Hello Canada, it's Thursday, September 4th, and this is the True North Daily Brief. I'm Cosmin, Dzsurdzsa.
And I'm Geoff Knight.
We've got you covered with all the news you need to know. Let's discuss the top stories of the day and the True North exclusives you won't hear anywhere else. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has revealed his party's fall parliamentary agenda, focusing on affordability, crime, border security, and abolishing the temporary foreign worker program. Poilievre, along with his immigration critic Michelle Rempel-Garner, announced their plan to fight high wages and mass youth unemployment, which they say is made worse by the Liberals' TFW program.
And let's be honest, young people today form what I call Generation Screwed. Let's look at the situation for this generation. It is the first generation that cannot afford a home in Canadian history. And now, the double gut punch. They have the highest, or the worst employment numbers of any group of young people since the late 1990s. So you can't get a job, and even if you did have a job, you can never buy a home after 10 years of Liberal government.
According to Statistics Canada's unemployment rate data for July 2025, youth employment fell by 34,000 jobs, a 0.7% decline, bringing the rate to 53.6%. Excluding the COVID-19 pandemic years of 2020 to 2021, July had the lowest youth employment rate since November 1998. The report said, quote, of the 1.6 million people who were unemployed in July, 23.8% were in long-term unemployment, meaning they had been continuously searching for work for 27 weeks or more. Poilievre added, quote, the system gets worse and worse and worse. The time has come for decisive action. We have major problems in our job market. The unemployment rate for those age 15 to 24 is now 14.6%. The employment rate, the share of young people who are employed, is at its lowest level in over a quarter century outside of the pandemic. Poilievre said Carney has, quote, kept all of Justin Trudeau's immigration numbers despite the Liberal pivot to reverse its mass immigration intake. In the first 4 months of 2025, for example, Liberals welcomed 807,000 newcomers to Canada, including both permanent and non-permanent streams and counting visa extensions. During a press conference in Toronto on Wednesday, Prime Minister Mark Carney shut down the idea that his government would scrap the temporary foreign worker program in its entirety.
That program has a role. It has to be focused in terms of its role. And it's part of what we're reviewing. It's part of what we will be discussing, how well the temporary foreign worker program is working and how our overall immigration system is working. We've been absolutely clear as a government that we want, and we're putting in place policies so that the overall level of immigration as a proportion of the population will decline from around 7% today to around 5% several years from now. Now, the biggest contributor to immigration is not temporary foreign workers. It's a variety of other factors.
So just from my observations, the temporary foreign worker program, I've honestly never seen a government program so quickly get so much public blowback as more information comes out about it. I think for a while the public was not aware of things like the labor market impact assessment, some of the other issues that happen with the temporary foreign worker program, but also its effect on unemployment, particularly the reliance of traditionally first job employers like Tim Hortons, gas stations on these programs and how that's affecting Canada's youth. Now, this policy proposal by Poilievre and the Conservatives is a step in the right direction, and it's definitely I would say, a change up for them because they have, to me at least, been quite reserved on immigration for quite some time. Until now, I guess the public attitude is shifting quite dramatically. And there was a lot said in this press conference, but what are some of the more shocking parts that came out of this entire conversation around temporary foreign workers?
Yeah, Cosmin. Well, one shocking revelation was Poilievre's bold proposal to abolish the entire temporary foreign worker program, a move that contrasts with the party's historical support for business-friendly policies, signaling a dramatic shift towards prioritizing domestic youth employment amid a 14.6% unemployment rate for those aged 15 to 24. The announcement of tying border security to affordability and crime reduction stunned observers as it frames immigration control as a core economic and safety issue, a departure from the party's previous focus on fiscal conservatism, potentially alienating some business allies. Michelle Rempel-Garner's emphasis on fighting high wages as a problem rather than a benefit caught attention, suggesting a controversial stance that could imply supporting lower labor costs over worker prosperity, diverging from typical conservative pro-worker rhetoric. The claim that Carney maintained Trudeau's high immigration numbers, which was something like 817,000 newcomers in early 2025, despite a supposed pivot, drew gasps as it challenges the liberal narrative of moderation, putting Poilievre's party in direct opposition to both current and past government strategies. A criminal investigation into Juno News co-founder Keean Bexte for election reporting is being slammed by Conservative MP and former True North journalist Andrew Lawton as, quote, ridiculous. The Commissioner of Canada Elections has launched a criminal investigation against Bexte and Juno News following Bexte's reporting on allegations about the Liberal candidate for Calgary Confederation, Thomas Keeper. The Commissioner noted that the alleged crime related to journalism was a breach of the controversial Section 91 of the Canada Elections Act, which prohibits knowingly reporting false criminal accusations about a candidate with the intention of swaying the election results. Juno News has strongly denied these allegations and stands by its reporting. If convicted under Section 91 of the Canada Elections Act, Bexte could face a maximum of $50,000 in fines and 5 years in prison. The reports in question sourced first-hand accounts and allegations against Keeper, and multiple attempts were made to reach the Liberal Party and Keeper to provide them with an opportunity to respond. The Liberals dropped Keeper as a candidate following the reports and replaced him with another candidate. Lawton, a former independent journalist and host of The Andrew Lawton Show, defended Juno's reporting and independent journalism on X on Wednesday. Lawton said, quote, contrary to the Liberals' best efforts, independent journalism is not a crime. It's ridiculous that a prosecutorial body is pursuing Juno News over a story that was sourced and corroborated and was taken seriously enough by the Liberals to turf the candidate it was about. So, Cosmin, what is Section 91 of the Elections Act, and why is it so controversial?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, and you pretty much summed it up. It's a section that essentially prohibits publishing or reporting things during an election period that are considered to be false statements. And now the law says that you have to be found to have knowingly made a false statement, which is kind of hard to it leaves room for interpretation. Reporters don't just base stories on thin air, right? If you look at the story, it's completely grounded in testimonies and allegations made by specific people who knew this individual. And there was a post put out by Christine Van Gyn from the Canadian Constitution Foundation, and she's a lawyer who actually, her group partook in challenging certain aspects of this law and successfully changed some of it. But she laid out quite a few reasonable things in her post, because essentially the law now only applies if the publisher knows the statements are false. And I don't think, just from reading it, looking at the report when it was originally published and when I read it recently, Juno's reporting doesn't fit that at all. And I'm not even sure how the government thinks that this is applicable, this particular law is applicable to this case. And that raises other questions about if they know that it's not really applicable, but they do it anyway. Now, I'm not alleging anything, but it's definitely interesting how they selectively use use these laws to target reporting and journalism on candidates from the Liberal Party. Additionally, the entire news article, as I mentioned earlier, used firsthand interviews. It corroborated accounts, anonymized sources, offered the candidate and other individuals a chance to respond, even in person. It wasn't just an email. It was to the extent of trying to track them down in person, in the flesh. And additionally, there was public interest in this story. This is a candidate who is a public figure, a professional in their field, and running for one of the largest parties in this country. And throughout the report, there was clear labeling. Where something was an allegation, it was framed as an allegation and essentially not stated as the truth, be all and end all truth. It was an allegation made by an acquaintance or, coworker, etc. As reports are to do, especially during election periods when candidates are in the limelight. So I think these are some of the points that she made. I'm just paraphrasing here, reading through her response. But one of the fundamental things that this type of government intervention in journalism, and it's not the first time they've done this, they've tried to use election laws to go after reporters in the past. And what it does is it creates this chilling effect where investigation itself, becomes too risky. And reporting things that might be, alleged about individuals and might actually be common knowledge about certain individuals who are politicians, etc., but haven't been reported by the media for one reason or another, could deter future reporting in instances where it's of public interest. And it honestly borders on the weaponization of the law. And I'm not so sure that this law is being misused, as some people might have alleged. I think it's being used for what it's actually for, and that is to suppress these kinds of criticisms of political figures when it's convenient for the establishment. And that raises the question of, do we really need a law like this in the Elections Act? Or are there other ways to handle this? Of course, there's always civil suits that can be pursued when somebody feels wronged. So the idea that we can criminalize journalism and reporting is far-fetched, and I don't think that a lot of people in the general public are aware that that's even a thing in Canada.
Hey, Keean Bexte here. Do you know someone, maybe it's you, who wants to start a career in politics, but can't stand the thought of wasting years and years in a lecture hall while some woke professor drones on about gender studies? Well, we found the perfect alternative. Macquarie College's Applied Politics and Public Affairs program. It's a 2-year evening and online program available all across Canada, where you'll actually learn how to run campaigns, organize movements, and push policy in the right direction. Instead of empty theory, you'll complete 3 practicums. Real-world placements in your community or with the party that you believe in. That's job-ready experience that opens doors straight into politics. And here's the best part. If you apply with code Juno, or simply tell admissions that Juno News sent you, you'll unlock an exclusive $500 scholarship that is exclusive just for our listeners. We're backing this program because we want more of our audience inside the system, making changes from the inside out. With September and January intakes open now, this is your moment. Visit macquariecollege.com or click the link in our show notes to apply.
Liberal Justice Minister Sean Fraser claims Canada, quote, isn't the Wild West, but Durham Regional Police Association says the country's current crime wave tells a different story. Fraser criticized Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's proposal to enhance Canadians' self-defense rights when dealing with a home intruder during a press conference in Brampton last week. Poilievre advocated for a, quote, stand-on-guard principle to be added to the criminal code. He said the amendment would clarify and reinforce Canadians' right to self-defense during a home invasion. Poilievre said if the Liberals won't introduce the bill on their own, the Conservatives will introduce the proposed amendments in a private member's bill. Fraser wrote in response to Poilievre's proposal in a post to X on Monday saying, quote, Canadians already have the right to defend themselves under a law Harper brought in with Poilievre's support. Now he's chasing a photo op by attacking police for doing their jobs. I trust police to lay charges and judges to consider evidence over Pierre playing cops and robbers. However, the Durham Regional Police Association responded to Fraser saying that while, quote, vigilantism is not the answer, Canada does actually resemble the Wild West. The DRP continued writing in the post on X, quote, when bullets are flying in open spaces at all different directions, having the potential to strike completely innocent individual, or an 8-year-old is struck by a stray bullet from a shootout while asleep in their bed, or a youth murdered in an open and full public food court washroom, it actually does resemble the, quote, Wild West. The union continued saying, you say Canadians need real solutions that make us safer, not slogans that inspire fear and chaos. The fact is, your government has been in place for a decade and offered no concrete solutions or actions to fix the problems that are ever increasing. Well, home invasions have become a huge thing in the news, and it's very terrifying. I think it hits close to home for many people, because when you go to your house, you're with your family, you assume you're safe. That's the safest space for children most of the time, the safest place you could be. You could relax and unwind and be around the people you love. And to think that it's becoming more common and it's possible that somebody could invade your home to steal your belongings or worse, I think it really terrifies people, and for good reason, especially when we have a situation where it's on the uptick and the home invasions are becoming more brazen, more violent even. So what are some of the things, Geoff, that have been going on, some of the major stories since Sean Fraser's flippant dismissal of self-defense?
Yeah, Cosmin, since the Durham Regional Police's Wild West comments in late August, a series of alarming incidents have unfolded, including a drive-by shooting in Scarborough on August 28th that injured 2 bystanders. On August 29th, a home invasion in London, Ontario turned deadly when a resident was killed after confronting intruders, adding to the debate over self-defense rights amid the crime wave. Reports emerged on August 30th of a gang-related stabbing in a Vancouver park, leaving 3 hospitalized, which further fuels concerns about public safety that the police association tied to the government inaction. Additionally, on August 31st, a carjacking in Winnipeg escalated into a high-speed chase, ending with the suspect firing at police, underscoring the chaotic conditions the Durham police described in their critique of the Liberal government's approach.
That's it for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in. You can stay on top of new episodes every weekday by subscribing to the Daily Brief on iTunes and Spotify. Also, while you're at it, make sure to hit us with a 5-star rating and please leave a review.